underrated, and ahead of its time. Hello, LG V50. The conversation on this phone has been kinda tricky. LG went all in on 5G, there is not a 4G option, and we're seeing their traditional stumbles on advertising and regional features. There's a lot stacked against this phone, and that's a shame, because it's one of the best phones of the year. People really haven't been excited about LG this year, but subtle tweaks and aesthetic changes have been nice to cover. We still suffer the dual selfie camera notch, but the flush rear cameras are super sleek. And in a world of super fragile waterfall and curved displays, I like being able to return to a pretty flat front face, making the sides of this phone more durable, and fewer reflections and warping of content when you're playing games or watching videos. We always seem to take LG for granted because they're almost always the last manufacturer to hold on to features we say we like. It might make the V50 feel a bit old-fashioned, but we arrive at a more practical build that I bet many enthusiasts will miss when all premium phones have some kind of fragile and frustrating wraparound screen. But getting into the phone, the things I like, this is a multimedia and content creation monster. And this is the best execution from LG I've ever seen in really leveraging the horsepower of a current generation Qualcomm chipset. If we're gonna talk about pro phones and pro features, this is a top tier solution. 4K, 60 frame per second software stabilized video on all 3 camera sensors, with full manual controls on the standard and wide shooters. I know people are trying to act like Apple invented that, but LG got there first, and you don't need to buy Filmic to add all the proper camera control that Apple just refuses to include and Samsung cut from their most recent phones. It's hard to overstate how good this platform is for making stuff. It's all the attention paid to small details, bitrate options, granular audio control with fantastic microphones, a mode for super high quality audio capture, and HDR10 video on a phone with the absolute best headphone jack by a wide margin, so you can keep your USB-C port free for power or other accessories. I've been shooting a ton of video for my reviews and producing quite a bit out in the field on LG, where Samsung can make claims about a pro-grade camera. LG has everything you can find on a Samsung, like a super steady video mode, and they managed to give us all the auto modes and better support for all 3 cameras and faster AI scanning without sacrificing the manual modes. Talking about the phone as a computer, we're treated to a big, bright screen. LG's OLED game has gotten really good, and to the eye, I doubt many people would be able to find fault or really distinguish differences between this and a current generation AMOLED. And the quality fight is a bit more brutal against phones with higher refresh rate displays. That's gonna be the exciting new trend coming into 2020. But then we talk about audio. And the speakers on the V50 are above average, a noticeable improvement over the G8. It's still fun using that boombox mode, but the headphone jack continues to be absolutely incredible. I have a full separate review on the Patreon and audio deep dive, and I asked if folks wanted a cut down version of my audio reviews in my YouTube community tab, and no one replied. If you're complaining about 1% of my videos going behind a paywall, but you don't participate, well, that's kinda on you. Remember, YouTube is never going to support or help promote a content creator like me. In terms of performance, a phone like this is ridiculous for covering the basics. If you're watching reviews of people opening a couple social media apps, that's $300 phone territory these days. Premium phones should start disrupting tablet and laptop use. Now, LG had a reputation for tuning their phones a little slower than, say, a comparable OnePlus. It's maybe a holdover from the boot loop days, try and keep their phones running a little cooler. But that seemed to change this year, where you would see a noticeable difference in things like video editing. This year, LG has one of the strongest performers on my new test bench. I'm using a new video rendering test. Instead of one simple clip, I'm now using 6 UHD clips with transitions, a watermark, and a soundtrack, and creating a final UHD video. This causes PowerDirector to do a prep pre-render, and against a OnePlus 7T, the V50 was 20 seconds faster. To render similar quality on my MateBook laptop, around $1,000 thin laptop, takes about 7 minutes. And this has also been the best gaming experience I've ever seen on an LG. Maxing out a game like Bright Ridge, frame rate is only falling slightly behind my OnePlus 7 Pro. That's kind of a big deal for the LG label. The V50 continues LG's rep of building the smartphone equivalent of a big old diesel truck, tons of capability, but this year we get a phone which feels a lot more roadster nimble for the fun stuff. And a premium phone should never suffer poor reception. Radio performance is excellent. On Wi-Fi at the edges of my mesh network, LG competes directly against Samsung as one of the top options. And in general, 4G performance around town, it's neck and neck as one of the best phones I've reviewed this year. In my not quite scientific testing around town. And this phone also comes with the benefit of 5G support, which I've been test driving on Sprint. And this is a huge shot in the arm for Sprint subscribers. Not only landing faster downloads, but Sprint's 5G strategy is leaning on much better building penetration and significantly reducing network congestion. Instead of trying to roll out a ton of millimeter wave radios around town, which you can't really use if you move or you lose direct line of sight. As a quick dig, when TK and I did our 5G tour, the Sprint reps were demoing on a Samsung Galaxy S10 5G. The V50 wasn't even turned on, but running it against the Galaxy and the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G, the V50 was the fastest. I'm just saying, if you want the best, I couldn't help myself. To chat about software, seeing as how the G6 is just now getting Android Pie, I think we can be pretty confident LG will continue to lag on the big operating system updates. But the maintenance updates for the G and the V this year have been surprisingly good. We got the major updates to enable the higher tier camera modes. And the G8 is on the September security patch. I'm still waiting for that here. I'm still on August for the V50. It's super annoying not having a roadmap for Android 10, but at least we can be confident that LG won't gut a bunch of features we like when we do get an OS upgrade. That said, I still have a lot of the same basic gripes with LG software, the UI, the navigation, and almost all of those are cleaned up by slapping on another theme and then relying on Nova Launcher to sort of streamline the main face of what you interact with. I am but a creature of habit, and I like my layout for Nova Launcher. But what good is all this cool tech if your battery can't hang? And it seems LG is starting to figure out bigger batteries are better. In my limited video streaming test, the V50 landed one of the best battery drain times of any phone I've tested this year. And on a pretty heavy day of use, 2.5 hours of YouTube, over 2 hours of gaming, a solid hour of browsing Reddit, I landed 7 hours of screen on time at 17% battery. That's really good. And the recharge game isn't too bad either. The charger in the box, not the fastest, but connecting it to a higher wattage amp charger, we can eke out a little bit more runtime. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Let's wrap this up. Where's that leave us with the LG V50 ThinQ? LG's woes almost always have more to do with advertising and regional feature sets than any one specific deal breaker. Here, we have a premier Android multimedia experience, the absolute best audiophile headphone experience on any phone. It unseats quite a few standalone digital audio players, and it's a top-tier content creation experience. But LG's timing might be just a bit too early. Picking this phone up on Sprint, for example, it's the same price as an iPhone 11 Pro with twice the storage, the ability to add memory cards, better LTE performance, and a 5G radio to future-proof your purchase a bit. This is an option which more than deserves to be more visible in the conversation. But LG is not leading that discussion. And only having a 5G option means the carriers aren't likely to promote this phone as aggressively in 4G markets. It was a while before I could play with one in Los Angeles, as they're just now firing up 5G towers. I mean, Chicago? Why start in Chicago? And LG deserves a little blame for confusion, since the USA models of the V50 won't have support for the dual screen add-on which Korean V50s can use. I don't think this is a deal breaker, but in a world of folding phones and Microsoft showing off the Duo, these things are really fun to play with and a pretty good plug for productivity and multitasking. It's just a shame because LG has been on a great track since the G6. But it's these little stumbles, the regional omissions, and the huge lack of advertising which contribute to the idea that LG has totally failed, when the reality of the USA market is LG is the third place manufacturer, between 9 and 12% depending on the analyst. T-Mobile by themselves tripled the number of OnePlus 6Ts sold here, and there's huge growth in sub $700 devices, but LG is far from dead. You knew I was gonna come to this conclusion. This is my personal favorite phone of the year. And as we start closing out 2019, I think the V50 will be similar in spirit to the V20. When we got our hands on the V20, we didn't know it was going to be the last flagship with a removable battery and an IR blaster. Hardware, like a rear fingerprint sensor, might not be long for this world. Manufacturers seem to like giving us inferior in-display security options, but more troubling, I'm not sure how much longer LG will continue to deliver an audiophile grade headphone solution. There's just too much money to be made by copying Apple and making cabled headphones as painful to use as possible. Samsung fans show us they don't seem to have much issue making fun of Apple at the beginning of the year, and then getting used to it. You get used to it at the end of the year. It makes LG phones doubly precious for me, as I own nice wired and wireless headphones, and this is so much easier to plug in a mic when I want to make something. I hope LG can at least hold out through 2020. The V50 at once showcases the best of what LG has to offer, how it truly stands apart, and offers up a unique experience against Samsung and Apple's race to the middle. But at the same time, the V50 also reinforces some of the systemic issues we've seen from this manufacturer in advertising and distributing their products around the world. The number of people in my comments who probably won't ever have access to a V50 in their area. And that's a damn shame, because this phone is epic. I'll of course leave some links down below where you can find more info on the LG V50 ThinQ. Maybe shop one of these puppies online. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to this channel. More than just nerding out on the most popular options for YouTube search and SEO, we want to make sure we're talking about the whole landscape of different products and see if consumers can find the best possible fit for their needs. If you would like to help support the production of those conversations, there are links below, or you could consider joining the list of names currently scrolling by on your screen. It's a growing community of fun, like-minded tech pals, a huge resource for me as I'm planning future coverage, reviews, and editorials, and they get exclusive access to my audio and camera deep dive reviews. They're good people. I hope you'll check it out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch and the Facebooks and the Instagram, and I will catch you all on the next review.